This is it's insane. I was so determined to do this every day, and you should know the moment that you throw down the gauntlet on something that it's going to it's just going to turn around, and you got to like show your determination. So the things that happened for me over the last couple of weeks, I just honestly, it was impossible for me to get on and do a show. And what's awesome to me is I'm like got through everything, and I'm right back here. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about that adventure. Actually, it's just a continuation of some of the things I already talked about before. Now I got my garage in the basement, and the big difference now is all 5 of my kids are here. So, that's like a huge change. A year ago, just a little bit over a year ago, I had to drive them all down to Reno back to their mom and just accept kind of a defeat at the court, even though I put so much time and effort into trying to tell my story. And it wasn't that long before, she crashed and burned. And so I had to go through a whole process. It was a lot of stuff. Like first I filed an emergency motion with the court. I got a lot of help. If you go back some episodes, I talk about that because it's before I went down to get them. And then the court ended up ruling in my favor. And so I had like a little bit of time over the holidays because the court asked me when I wanted to go get them. And I knew the kids were okay for a little while. And, even though they were staying in a hotel, and, that might be actually a fun thing for them for Christmas and to be with their mom. And so the plan I had was to go down right after Christmas and on the 27th, and I couldn't do that. There was a lot of things. Like it got really complicated. I had a pretty good feeling she wasn't going to, mom wasn't going to help me helpful. And then, from there, I messaged her and said, hey, I can only come down the 28th. And at that time, I've been thinking about flying down, renting a car, driving back with the kids. So there were just 4 of them there still in Reno. And so I've been thinking about that plan. And my stepdad and my mom got plane tickets and everything. And it didn't, by the time we got closer, it was like the day before, and I was like, you know what? Like, why don't we just drive down? I'm like just sitting here, like so like unsure what's going to happen. And it's just like, this whole thing is just crazy. And I'm like, but and I also had the issue, like I have a lot of complexity. Like my name my birth certificate doesn't have my name, but I legally do use Govind all the time. And that's a whole other, I'll do a whole show about that whole story. But anyway, it makes it, I couldn't get a real ID unless I go fix some paperwork essentially. So I was worried about having to deal with the airports and everything. So anyway, we just got in the car, and the evening of the 27th, drove all the way down to to Susanville, and got a room there. I'm gonna just show like the living proof of this. It's just only a little piece of it. And but you can see, oh wow, look, it's putting the logo over my face here. I'll put the logo on the left. There we go. That works. So this is just a little piece of it at the tail end, because actually we stopped. This is right up until midnight. So this trip ended up, by the time we actually got to, if you look down, you can see it 413 miles, 7 hours, 40 minutes from Double Eagle Court in Reno. And but we were actually driving around a bunch during the day around Reno. And then anyway, I'm going to get to this part of the story, but the first part was driving all the way down to Susanville. So it was pretty chill, but it was pretty late at night, a lot of it. And like the road from Shasta over to Susanville gets pretty icy. It's a super remote area. Like there's hardly anything back there. And it was nighttime, and it had snowed a lot, and then the water froze, or during the day it warmed up, and so it got wet on the road, and then the water froze. It was pretty icy and kind of harrowing drive, honestly, the last like couple hours in the dark into Susanville. But anyway, it's just kind of anyway, that was a long drive. And then we got up in the morning and drove to Reno, which is to the location where the court, where the kid's mom said she was at. And I called the police because I knew they were probably going to need to be involved somehow or another. Like there was no way this was going to happen, and, without at least an escort. And then they were like, there was all this crazy stuff going on. That was Sunday in Reno, and so we actually never even really connected to the police until much later in the evening. So we spent the whole day just trying to figure out what was going on, and just kind of realizing that she wasn't at the location she said she was going to be at, and we didn't know where she was at. Eventually I was able to track where she was, because one of the kids had a device that I was able to track. So that was actually really good. And that came in handy in the end. But by the evening, and then my stepdad and I wanted to do it myself, but he could have flown down and met me. But it was just better, and it was fun. It wasn't fun, but it was much more pleasant than going on my own. So anyway, the whole thing was it was like a 3-hour special operations mission. So anyway, so it wasn't really actually that fun. It was an adventure. So anyway, we'll get back to the story here. So anyway, we're in Reno, and after a while on Sunday, it was getting we were just driving around, going for walks. Went to the library. Finally, I'm like, let's just get a hotel because this is not going to end today. There's just no way, right? And then so we got a hotel, relaxed. It was the same hotel. We just got a room at the place that she had said she was staying, and it was an extended stay, and there was a lot of people there that I thought, okay, this is definitely a place where they put kids and families when they because she was effectively homeless at that point, so she was getting some kind of probably credit to stay there. And then I knew that she had reconnected with her her mom, and that she had got some money to go get a nicer, got some money. So that my feeling was okay, she got a nicer hotel. She did have to send me a message that the kids were having a bunch of fun at the pool and stuff. And I'm this place is not that. So I knew that, it pretty quickly became apparent she wasn't where she said she was going to be. And, so anyway, by the evening, we finally heard from the police. They talked to her, and she was like, I'm not handing over the kids. Sorry. And the police were like, okay, the way this works is they can't enforce a family, just a family court issue. You have to have it's called a pickup order that gives the police some authority to go. So anyway, fortunately, I was able to have Susan help me, my partner Susan, and we put together an ex-party motion, ex-party emergency motion to get the pickup order. So I started to learn a little bit about the court process, and I actually called Diana, and she helped me too. Because I mean, just the little information is okay, what kind of motion do I need to put in? That was super helpful. And so, having just a little tip about even just the right paperwork is really important for legal stuff. If you do the wrong thing, it's the best. So, anyway, we got the motion in, and then the next morning I just got up and hung around and okay, what's going to happen? And by maybe 11 o'clock or so, the court granted the pickup order. So then we had to get a hold of the police, and luckily at that point I knew where she was. So and we had checked out the place that she was at to make sure her car was there. And anyway, met the police over there, and it was it wasn't actually at that point, I think she was really surprised, and there was some stuff. The kids, were about it how I expected. The Reno police are actually really awesome. There was a point where my youngest daughter wasn't actually there. She was at a play date, and her mom didn't want to reveal her location. And the cops were well, you can come back at 6. And I'm really? And I think the cops finally were wait, why are we letting somebody dictate to us? I'll pick an order. That's not how it works. And so they stuck around, and it was all kind of just hanging around at this hotel. And the other piece is they weren't sure at first if we could even get, we'd be able to get to her because the hotels, they don't always necessarily give up the location, like they for privacy issues. And so then in that case, we would have to wait another day to get a warrant. Oh my gosh, this is getting insane, but fortunately didn't get there. And then by like maybe 2:30, we had all the kids and, in the car, and was like, okay, we're just going to drive. And, I thought maybe we could stop somewhere overnight and stuff. But by the time you just hit the road, it was like, let's just go. So actually, is that this part of the trip, and it went up until from like, most of this driving was from like 2:30 or so in the afternoon until midnight, which got us up to, I think, like Portland. And then we got just south of Portland, and then we got back into, Tumwater, Olympia area, like maybe 2:30 in the morning after stops or something like that. So anyway, crazy big adventure, and it's I'm excited though to have all my kids up here. And then of course they get here, it's still holidays. They're, the first couple of days when you get, if you've been through this kind of kid transfer type stuff, the first couple of days are just crazy. I think they say it's like takes 48 hours for like the cortisol, for them to just calm down, basically. Anyway, that's pretty much how it works. And, they start settling in, but, and then I had to figure out how to get them into school up here, and just got that worked out. So yesterday was the first day at school, and I just was like, there's no way I just had to recover myself enough after all this. And then, was excited today to get enough time to get back on the show. So, and so I'm actually going to jump into the meat of what I'm thinking about, or what I'm focused on today. And actually, so last couple of days I've been having a lot of conversations about, guess what, AI, but really I would call it at the corporate AI level. And it, and most of this conversation has been around what's going, like what I see is the front edge of AI, and that's this kind of worker-based or agentic AI. And the easiest way to think about this is just like, the AI autonomous machine that we're going to see a whole proliferation of. It's going to look like workers. They're just, digital workers. Even people talk about digital twin. Not exactly the right concept, but you're like it's the digital identity, whatever, the AI agent, AI worker. They're all going to be it probably will be called AI agents. Who knows? Maybe the term will become an AI worker, AI employee, right? Like they're going to be, there's this concept, and what's being built is this idea of sort of digital autonomous, worker machines. Just like you could have a digital, a robot that's an autonomous system working. It has a certain purpose or function, maybe connected to other things, but it has a certain level of like localized autonomy, decision making, and intelligence, memory, all of those things. So if you look at kind of what's happened in AI, like what most people, I would say, in the general population or public are looking at for AI is just around generative AI and all kinds of different forms of generative AI problem solving. It's like, it's like the chat bot that you ask questions and it gives you, and this one here, you have to interact with it and guide, tell it what to do. And it's sort of like your buddy robot, right? But it's not thinking for you. It's not taking action other than when it's prompted to. And then the next kind of more complex evolution of that is the agentic AI, which is like, again, it's thinking, it acts independently. Is this $133 billion market by 2034 here? I don't really know what they define as the market, but I'm going to be honest with you. This seems to be like undershot by like maybe like for sure an order of magnitude, like $1 trillion market. But for me, like, $10 trillion market, like I don't know. I just, again, when you consider the use cases for autonomous, intelligence in terms of whether, especially as you expand into robotic devices. I mean, I think 100 billion. This is going to be like foundational to like an absolute like transformation of like technology, in my perspective, and it's bigger than the internet, and that in terms of its global impact, almost certainly. Again, sort of, lots going to be lots of opinions. There was a guy at IBM. I read those stories. He thought there was a global demand for computers would be about 10,000, right? I mean, like to me, 100 billion is just such a trivially small scale that I think this is way off. And what are these kind of pillars, right? And this is where I kind of get into like, what are companies, corporations, businesses doing about this, right? Like, you're going to need to have a foundation, an architecture, a strategy for for agents, where like, where are your agents gonna like sit, where are they gonna live, right? Because they're gonna be these like little machines, right? And they're gonna have to have a home. They're gonna be like, they're not exactly, it's like companies that had a half a dozen servers, maybe in AWS cloud, or they had some containers doing some work, now all of a sudden you're going to 10x that, because the amount of digital work that's going to occur autonomously is, right? Like, you're going to take the PC that your person in the office used to work, and now that's going to be an electronic body, right? Think of it that way. So where are these things going to sit? Are they going to sit, in these big clouds with AWS and Microsoft, right? And then, where's the data and the memory and the interconnections with your company data? Where's that all going to happen? And so this is, to me, this is going to happen. This transformation is like well underway. The forefront of it is this creation of work, is going to be this creation of workers. I mean, is this proliferating everywhere? I don't know. There's a lot of stats, and there's a lot of, probably hype about what's happening. And, is this going to happen in a year? No, it's going to be a 20-year process of basically, like, just like everything went to the cloud, it's going to be this transformation of everything becomes kind of AI. Anyway, that's my futurist perspective. And so anyway, this morning I had a great, like, I was part of a really awesome conversation with Chris McGrath, who's I spammed him, one of these campaigns where I was like, I should just get out there and connect with, like, business leaders in Olympia, because it's, where I'm right around this area. And anyway, Chris, built up a pretty successful staffing business and has started working on an AI platform, or essentially I could say a platform to build AI platforms, right? It's addressing these, like, where, how, not just like where your your digital worker is going to sit, but how do you orchestrate all this? How do you build this out? And how do you do this in a scalable way? So, I'm going to go through, like, this is Chris's company, Oceanic. Why is it not here? I'm going to make it big. There you go. Look at that. Here's Oceanic. So he's launched the website, and then my understanding is, like, the product launch itself is in February. And I want to show this just to kind of look at some of the core concepts, right? Like, what's going on here? What are they building? Agentic operating system, autonomous cloud, search and retrieval, right? This is around, like, okay, getting your data or getting data from external sources, right? And they have this, the domain specific AI platforms comes down to this idea of, hey, okay, I'm going to go, like, build a layer of LLM. I'm going to build a knowledge that is specific to how, like, my company works. I'll, like, say our expertise, right? Like, that's what you want. You want knowledge. You want proprietary knowledge to be built into these AI workers, and they may not, operate best with, like, a generic language model, right? If you create proprietary language models, that's how you gain it in space, right? So again, and then this comes down to the infrastructure, right? So we're going to look at, how do you deploy this? How are we going to go out and we're going to have 10,000 workers, you need to put those on, whether it's containers or servers, virtual servers. I mean, is it going to be, there's going to be companies that do not want their autonomous systems running on any cloud, right? They're going to they're getting and building huge data centers right now to run these like digital workers so that it's all like secure network. And there's going to be deployment layers and automation and all this stuff that goes around, like, creating new workers from like, that look like other workers, validating that they're operational. There's going to be these huge scaled up, operations that happen like this. So, and just as validation that like, this is, the idea here is like, this is where things are going. Here's the company that Chris, it's sort of like, I don't want to say he's modeling after, but here's his proof that like, there's a big industry here. These guys, I guess they're valued at 6 billion Cohere. And again, what are they doing? Right now, they've got a bunch of big logos here already. And it's like, okay, I'm going to deploy a bunch of like, AI agents, right? AI workers. What is it? Your next breakthrough powered by AI, right? But what is this? What does it mean? Like, okay, what it means is, hey, we're going to like, I mean, in their case, according to Chris, they're really not even deploying workers effectively, but this is really, to me, where it goes, their model, right? Is you're going to deploy these AI agents that are going to replace bodies, right? They're going now, here's are they going to replace bodies, or are they going to just are people just going to do different kinds of work? I don't, we'll, the question of whether AI is just going to put an end to, is going to kill our industries, and nobody's going to work anymore. I just don't think that's how the economics of humanity work. Like, people want to do stuff. The economic systems are propelled by individuals like putting in effort, and like, I don't see it. I think we're still going to have like plenty of everybody's still going to be working, right? But what is going to happen is a huge amount of knowledge work and like information based activities are going to be picked up by AI. Like, banks are going to, like deal analysis, right? Like, okay, I've got a portfolio of deals coming in and I want to, underwriting and financial analysis, right? You're going to have companies that are building models for these agents, and they process these things. And there's, probably at some high level a human being overseeing the whole process. But, one person can now oversee a process of analyzing 1,000 deals that would have taken 100 people not that long ago, right? What do those 100 people do? They go do other things, right? but yeah, there's going to be wipeouts for sure in certain types of work, which happens all the time. So these are some examples here, and then I wanted to show a little bit more about kind of the structure. This is something that I produced from Chris. Chris created a notebook LM for Oceanic, which is their AI platform. And like, what are the key concepts here? How does this what does this mean if you're thinking about AI for your company, or how things are likely to happen, right? So you're going to have top left here, you're going to have this kind of 90 probably percent 99 most companies up to it, unless you have a huge scale or some kind of hyper specific use case with super high volume processing, you're going to run these you're going to run your AI agents in the cloud, right? You're like, I'm going to deploy a couple hundred workers that have these functions and purposes. And and there's going to be control layers and things like that. So that's, again, mostly it's going to sit on the different clouds, and they're all coming out with their I'll have to do another show and dig into like, okay, what is the solution for deploying AI workers? Nodes, you can call it. All the infrastructure giants, everybody's going to be coming out with if they don't have them already, are coming out with their tools for agent worker deployment on the cloud, right? And then in this case, there's this kind of LLM training, and I think this is key. Like, there's organizational data right? That you want, and then there's also like best practice. So there's going to be, to me, there's an opportunity to shape and build, kind of worker environments that are oriented around like very specific, like, call it trade secret type processes, right? Your secret sauce for your company, when you go and automate that and build that, it, it's never the same. I mean, as a solution designer, gosh, built 300, saw the insides and the guts of probably 300 at least companies. And, every company has like the way they solve problems is a function of their unique business models, and it's different everywhere. And, it needs to align with culture and all of these things. So it is, like creating a language environment for your organization is going to be unique, and it's going to set you apart. It's a differentiator in terms of aligning how you work as a company, your values, and the data that you have. So that's really important to think about, like how this is going to play out in an AI world, right? So that's another feature on here is Echo. This is a big thing, right? Is like how, connecting these AI workers. You see a lot of different stuff like thrown around, like the tools, right? What are the tools that like a worker has to use? And those tools are often going to be third-party services or maybe internal company services. And you're going to, you got to define a worker in terms of, hey, this worker is going to have access to these tools and these rights to use the tools, or here's how they're going to communicate with those tools. So that's a key feature of AI. And then the learning, right? The actual intelligence. I believe that's what this, kind of that's what Orca here sits for, right? Like you have like the brain, right? And you have the being, you could almost call it, and that's going to be operating, often, I would imagine in most cases, continuously. These are going to be things that are just, unless they're designed around work hours or something, and you shut them off for cost purposes. These could be workers that are going to be constantly producing outputs, analyzing things, or doing whatever. And it's going to have this brain that's making decisions, and then that's and under the bottom here, the pods and Super Dolphin is how do you organize, like, right? You're going to have these workers, but they're going to have layers. They're going to start to resemble human hierarchy, right? Where you need like, let's say you have 10 workers and you need a control pod that says, hey, is the worker producing things? Is there accuracy, right? Like there's an architecture and design to how this is going to work that's probably going to follow, more or less, the kind of human organizations that we know. You have like squad, in this case it's pods and super pods, but you're going to have, squads, and you're going to have a sergeant, and, whatever, the language is going to be whatever connects the dots for people, but the organizing principles are going to, we're not going to suddenly come up with a new way of organizing workers. It's going to follow a lot of the patterns that we've already known. It's just that, your AI bot probably isn't going to talk back so much, right? So anyway, I love thinking about this stuff and excited to be what I would say is really the vanguard or the forefront of what's happening in AI right now. And, as companies figure this out, we're going to see these crazy, interesting use cases coming up. And, definitely my prediction is, the AI, the software and tech companies that are helping adopt this and advance this kind of thinking are the ones that are likely to be, so there's going to be some top players that come out of this that are going to, that are going to have, we have, Microsoft has how many Windows, licenses on how many machines, how many billions of machines or whatever, right? What's the AI framework that becomes, with every device and server runs this on, and so there's a huge amount of intellectual progress in those areas, and I'll try to keep this as a topic pretty regularly. And I just wanted to wrap up. I'm working on this idea of like having like a couple of show sponsors, and I'm gonna try to, kind of build my show out into like a legit show here coming up. So, strategist, that's me. So I provide innovative insights and visual design for all kinds of business problem solving, whether that's technical architecture, business process engineering, or go to market creative ideas and campaigns. So if you're interested in that, just DM me on LinkedIn, and I take on a few projects here and there that I think are fun and exciting. And also, obviously, Oceanic, that's Chris's company. And if you're looking for infrastructure implementation, you can always reach out to me also to talk about the kind of much more technical aspects of especially AI architecture implementation through Sorin. They're a big European IT shop, and I've been helping them break into the U.S. market. So anyway, we're offering a free AI infrastructure analysis or readiness analysis. So if you're interested in that, you can also DM me on LinkedIn.